Good evening, it's Monday the 31st of March and here's what's making news around the world on World News Tonight. Earthquake crisis. Over 1,700 people have died in Myanmar after a 7.7 quake. France's future. Marine Le Pen awaits a court ruling that could block her 2027 presidential run. Bird tech. Smart bird feeders are attracting young birdwatchers across cities.
From Colombo, this is World News Tonight with Akhil Qureshi.
Good evening once again. The death toll from Myanmar's devastating 7.7 magnitude earthquakes has surpassed 1,700. Rescuers' operations continue to challenging conditions with international aid teams assisting in relief efforts.
Rescue workers in Myanmar's quake-hit capital pulled this man alive from the rubble after over 40 hours trapped in the wreckage of a 3-story building. He was miraculously without major injuries and is in a stable condition. While this man was lucky, many more are feared still trapped across the country, and the death toll from Friday's 7.7 magnitude quake, one of Myanmar's strongest in a century, continued to rise. The military government said on Sunday more than 1,700 people had been killed, with over 3,000 injured and hundreds still missing. Experts have estimated the death toll could top 10,000 and losses could exceed the country's annual economic output. Russian rescue teams touched down in the capital Naypyidaw, bringing with them a mobile hospital before heading to hard-hit Mandalay near the epicenter of the quake. Eyewitness footage showed the extensive damage in Mandalay. Reuters was able to verify the location and date of the video. Aid workers and residents said scores of people there were feared trapped under collapsed buildings, and most could not be reached or pulled out without heavy machinery. Thailand, India and China were among Myanmar's neighbours that have also sent relief materials and teams, along with aid and personnel from Malaysia and Singapore. Critical infrastructure, including bridges, highways, airports and railways across the country, lie damaged, slowing humanitarian efforts. In some areas near the epicenter, residents told Reuters that government assistance was scarce, leaving people to fend for themselves. The devastation piles more misery on Myanmar, already in chaos from a civil war that grew out of a nationwide uprising after a 2021 military coup ousted the elected government. The opposition National Unity Government, which includes remnants of the previous administration, said anti-junta militias under its command would pause all offensive military actions for 2 weeks from Sunday. In neighbouring Thailand, authorities said dozens of people remained trapped under the debris of a collapsed Bangkok skyscraper that was under construction when the quake hit. Rescue workers used drones and sniffer dogs to hunt for survivors, but only bodies had been retrieved so far. Some relatives and friends of the missing and trapped construction workers broke down as they waited for news.
In response to the impeding US tariffs, China, Japan and South Korea have agreed to enhancing regional trade cooperations. The three nations aim to bolster economic ties and mitigate potential impacts from external trade policies.
China, Japan and South Korea held the first trade talks in 5 years on Sunday, amid concerns over US President Donald Trump's import tariffs. The three Asian manufacturing giants agreed to, quote, closely cooperate for a comprehensive and high-level talks to improve free trade in the region. That's according to a statement released after the meeting. Trade ministers from the three nations met ahead of Trump's planned announcement on Wednesday of more tariffs in what he calls, quote, Liberation Day. Last week, Trump announced 25% import tariffs on cars and auto parts, a move that may hurt companies, especially Asian automakers, which are among the largest vehicle exporters to the US. Seoul, Beijing, and Tokyo are major US trading partners, although they have been at loggerheads among themselves. Disagreements over issues, including territorial disputes, have prevented them from making any substantial progress on a trilateral free trade deal since starting talks in 2012. The ministers agreed to hold their next ministerial meeting in Japan.
President Donald Trump has issued a stern ultimatum to Iran, threatening bombings and steep tariffs unless a new nuclear deal is signed, escalating tensions following Tehran's refusal to return to negotiations.
U.S. President Donald Trump threatened Iran on Sunday with bombing and also with what he called secondary tariffs if Tehran did not come to a new agreement with Washington over its nuclear program. In a telephone interview with NBC News, Trump said, quote, "If they don't make a deal, there will be bombing. It will be bombing, the likes of which they have never seen before." But he also suggested another outcome could be tariffs on countries that imported Iranian oil in an effort to further pressure Iran for concessions. In 2015, Iran signed a deal with the U.S. and other Western powers, accepting curbs and inspections on its nuclear program in exchange for sanctions relief.
I am announcing today that the United States will withdraw from the Iran nuclear deal.
In his first term in office, Trump pulled out of that deal and ratcheted up trade barriers. In response, Tehran ramped up its uranium enrichment beyond the limits of the 2015 accord. Since returning to office, the Trump administration reached out to Tehran in a letter about coming to a new agreement. Iran sent a response through Oman saying it would not engage in direct talks while under U.S. tariff pressure and military threats.
On Sunday,
Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian said the U.S. government had breached the earlier agreement and needed to, quote, create trust. Tehran says its nuclear program is wholly for civilian energy purposes.
Syria's transitional president Ahmed al-Sharaa has appointed a new cabinet including women and minority leaders, marking a significant political shift towards inclusivity amid efforts to rebuild the war-torn country.
Syria's interim president Ahmed al-Sharaa announced a transitional government on Saturday with a woman and religious minorities among those named as ministers. The broadened cabinet is seen as a key milestone in the transition from decades of Assad family rule and to improving Syria's ties with the West. In a speech, Sharaa listed out his goals for the country. They included rebuilding Syria on a foundation of accountability, fixing economic and social issues, as well as strengthening human rights.
I want to stress that this government is the government of change and development, a government that bears the responsibility of the people's aspirations and hopes of a bright and sustainable future. We believe that hard and loyal work, along with cooperation between the people, will be the key to achieving these goals.
The new Sunni Islamist-led authorities have been under pressure from the West and Arab countries to form a government that is more inclusive of Syria's diverse ethnic and religious communities. That pressure grew after hundreds of Alawites were killed in violence along Syria's western coast this month. The Assad family were members of the Alawite sect. On Saturday, an Alawite, Yarub Bada, was appointed transportation minister, while Hind Kabawat, a Christian woman, took her oath to become social affairs and labor minister. Sharaa also named a Druze agriculture chief and a Kurdish education minister. After his group led rebels to topple the Assad regime, Sharaa became interim president in January. He pledged to form an inclusive transitional government that would build up Syria's gutted public institutions and run the country until it could hold elections, which he said could take up to 5 years. Earlier this month, the leadership issued a constitutional declaration to serve as the foundation for the interim period. It kept a central role for Islamic law while guaranteeing women's rights and freedom of expression.
Let's take a short commercial break. More world news on the other side. Welcome back. Amid growing frustration with Moscow's stance on Ukraine, President Donald Trump is threatening steep tariffs on Russian oil unless progress is made on ceasefire agreements and diplomatic engagement resumes.
U.S. President Donald Trump warned he will impose secondary tariffs on Russian oil if Moscow doesn't agree to a ceasefire agreement with Ukraine. Speaking to NBC on Sunday, Trump warned that if Russia doesn't agree to the ceasefire, he will put secondary tariffs on oil coming out of Russia. He added that the 25% tariffs could happen at any moment. He also said that he plans to speak with Putin later this week. The U.S. president also told NBC News that he was very angry after Russian President Vladimir Putin questioned the credibility of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's leadership.
Vice President J.D. Vance has accused Denmark of neglecting Greenland security, suggesting the US could step in more directly to protect strategically vital Arctic territory for external threats.
U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance slammed Denmark during a visit to Greenland on Friday, saying it was failing to keep the semi-autonomous Danish territory and its people safe from incursions by China and Russia.
Denmark has not kept pace in devoting the resources necessary to keep this base, to keep our troops, and in my view, to keep the people of Greenland safe from a lot of very aggressive incursions from Russia, from China, and from other nations.
Vance gave no details of the alleged incursions and said there were no immediate plans to expand U.S. military presence on the ground in Greenland. As Vance's visit was underway, President Donald Trump told reporters at the White House the United States needs Greenland to ensure peace of the entire world.
We need Greenland, very importantly, for international security. We have to have Greenland. It's not a question of, do you think we can do without it? We can't. If you look at Greenland right now, if you look at the waterways, you have Chinese and Russian ships all over the place. And we're not going to be able to do that. We're not relying on Denmark or anybody else to take care of that situation. And we're not talking about peace for the United States. We're talking about world peace. We're talking about international security.
The vice president's visit on Friday came just after a new broad government coalition was put in place that aims to keep ties with Denmark for now. Greenland's new prime minister said Vance coming to Greenland signaled a lack of respect and called for unity in the face of pressure from outside. A White House official has said Greenland has an ample supply of rare earth minerals that would power the next generation of the U.S. economy. Meanwhile, polls have shown that nearly all Greenlanders oppose being part of the United States.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has vowed to escalate military pressures on Hamas, demanding full disarmament and leadership exile, even as ceasefire negotiations remain underway in the region.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Sunday demanded Hamas disarm and its leaders depart Gaza as he promised to step up military operations against the group. His comments come after the Hamas leader in Gaza said it had agreed to a ceasefire proposed by mediators Egypt and Qatar that included the release of 5 Israeli hostages each week. Those efforts are aimed at renewing a 2-month truce that saw the exchange of Israelis kidnapped by Palestinian militants for Palestinian prisoners held in Israeli detention. Israel resumed strikes and ground incursions into Gaza on March 18th. The Hamas leader said Israel's demands it lay down its arms was a red line the group would not cross. Netanyahu said he was conducting negotiations and military operations simultaneously, a strategy he said, quote, creates the conditions for the release of our hostages. On Sunday, the first day of the Muslim Eid al-Fitr holiday, health authorities in Gaza said at least 24 people, including several children, had been killed in Israeli strikes. They said 9 were killed in a single tent in the southern city of Khan Yunis. Israel launched its campaign in Gaza after a devastating Hamas attack on Israeli communities around the Gaza Strip on October 7, 2023, that killed some 1,200 people, according to an Israeli tally, and saw 250 abducted as hostages. The Israeli campaign has killed more than 50,000 Palestinians, according to Palestinian health authorities, and devastated much of the coastal enclave, leaving hundreds of thousands of people in tents or makeshift shelters. Since Israel resumed its attacks in Gaza on March 18th, hundreds of Palestinians have been killed and tens of thousands have been forced to evacuate areas in northern Gaza where they had returned following the ceasefire agreement in January. Netanyahu also said his government would allow what he called the voluntary immigration of Palestinians who wished to leave Gaza, an idea proposed by U.S. President Donald Trump. Trump originally called for relocating the entire population of Gaza, 2.3 million people, to other countries, including Egypt and Jordan, and developing Gaza as a U.S.-owned resort. However, no country has agreed to take in the population, and Israel has since said that any departures by Palestinians would be voluntary.
French far-right leader Marine Le Pen is awaiting court ruling in an embezzlement case that could potentially end her 2027 presidential bid, a verdict and major implications from France's political future.
On Monday, Marine Le Pen's fate in court will determine her political future. She is suspected of embezzling public funds and could be ruled immediately ineligible for public office, so preventing her from standing in France's presidential election, something she refuses to imagine. She told the French newspaper La Tribune du Dimanche,
"The judges have the right of life and death over our movement, but I don't think they will go that far."
She has struck the same tone at the National Assembly in recent days. However, her political survival and the future of her party is at stake. No one in the far-right National Rally dares imagine she could be prevented from running for office. Bruno Gollnisch, a former National Rally MEP, also implicated in the case, raised concerns. The Public Prosecutor's Office suspects Marine Le Pen of having set up a system of misappropriating EU funds to bolster the party's coffers of the then National Front between 2004 and 2016. A former government minister says depriving her of the right to run for office would be disproportionate.
I am not a fan of ineligibility. I consider that being elected or not, being able to run or not, is something for voters, universal suffrage to decide.
Under French law since 2016, any conviction for misappropriation of public funds automatically carries with it a penalty of ineligibility.
Facing reduced member state contribution, the World Health Organization has proposed cutting its budget by 20% and slashing staff, raising concerns about global health preparedness and emergency response.
The World Health Organization is proposing to cut staff, slash its budget, and scale back its work due to the impact of U.S. funding cuts. That's according to an internal memo seen by Reuters. U.S. President Donald Trump's administration withdrew from the WHO upon taking office in January, saying the Global Health Agency had mishandled the COVID-19 pandemic and other international health crises. The memo says the suggested budget cut is more than 20%, which is slightly larger than the 18% the WHO receives from the U.S., which is by far its biggest financial backer. The health group also blamed its financial struggles on countries that have reduced development assistance to boost defense spending. The WHO did not immediately respond to a request for comment. The memo also said it would reduce jobs at its headquarters in Geneva, Switzerland, and will decide on how to prioritize its work and resources by the end of April. Earlier this week, sources told Reuters the U.S. had paused contributions to the World Trade Organization as the Trump administration ramped up efforts to cut government spending.
Let's take a short commercial break. More world news on the other side. Welcome back. Richard Chamberlain, famed for his iconic role in Dr. Kildare, has died at age 90 from stroke complications, ending a storied television career that earned him acclaim as king of miniseries.
In the United States, renowned actor Richard Chamberlain, celebrated for his roles in Dr. Kildare and the award-winning miniseries The Thornbirds, died at the age of 90 on Saturday local time. Chamberlain died in Hawaii due to complications following a stroke. A three-time Golden Globe winner, he first gained fame in the 1960s after starring in Dr. Kildare, which made him a teen idol. Beyond television, Chamberlain appeared in films such as the Oscar-winning movie The Towering Inferno and The Three Musketeers. His lifelong partner, Martin Rabbit, paid tribute, expressing, "Our beloved Richard is with the angels now."
After 2 years of construction in France, the MSC's World America cruise ship has departed for Miami, ushering a new chapter of luxury cruises in the Caribbean. Take a look.
This giant of the seas has finally set sail. After more than 2 years of construction on France's Atlantic coast, the MSC World America is now on course for the United States. It's a send-off carried out with a certain pride. With its 22 decks, this floating city offers 19 restaurants, plus bars, theaters, and 7 swimming pools. Here, the excesses of the cruise industry are on full display. The MSC World America is 333 meters long, longer than the Eiffel Tower, and as tall as the Notre Dame. It can carry up to 6,700 passengers. This new cruise liner is only slightly smaller than the Icon of the Sea, the world's largest cruise ship launched last year. In comparison, even the Titanic looks miniature. And along with increases in size, cruise ships continue to rise in popularity. As ships grow, so do the climate-damaging emissions that cruises produce. On average, one of these ships emits as much greenhouse gas per year as 10,000 cars, even if these new liners run on natural gas. Several European cities outraged by this overconsumption have restricted access to the city center for cruise ships.
Smart bird feeders with built-in cameras and data tracking are captivating bird lovers, ushering a new era of tech-driven bird watching that's both educational and deeply immersive. Take a look.
It's a caught-on-camera reality show thrilling a new generation of bird watchers, so-called smart feeders. With cameras connected to your phone, offering a front-row seat, an up-close and personal window into a world we don't always see. Florida mom Melissa Kirkland got hers this past Christmas. Melissa started sharing her videos online, and soon her friend Jennifer Malzacher wanted one too.
There we go.
Now they're both hooked.
All right, that's good.
Calling this new hobby a game changer for their families. The app's even giving stats on the types of birds and recognizing repeat visitors, like Melissa's favorite, the painted bunting. Jennifer honoring her loved ones with names like Dennis for this cardinal, and that eastern bluebird, that's Penny. And now, some high-tech help for folks flocking to make new connections.
Well, that's a wrap right here on World News Tonight. I'm Quake Qureshi, and we're leaving you with the scenes of crowds enjoying cherry blossoms in Tokyo ahead of the peak season. Thank you for watching. Have a good night.